Welcome to Sketchy Ideas, the point counterpoint video podcast. We are in video, where we illustrate concepts surrounding leadership, business, personal achievement, sales, a bunch of other stuff in a way that may make you think twice before implementing that new idea you just learned about on the internet. My name is Michael Rampola with Spirity. With us is
Erin.
That's your cue, Brad.
Oh.
No, I'm Brad James.
Or Erin. There we go. My co-host, I gotta give you guys cues. My co-host, as always, is Brad. Say hi, Brad.
Hi.
There he is. With us, we have a special guest today for part 3 of our Avatar series, Erin Hinkle, founder and principal consultant at BuildRise. BuildRise is an HR consultancy that helps startups transitioning from startup to their next phase with their HR and talent practices so they can upskill their talent as they upskill their business. Say hi, Erin.
Hi, everyone. Hi, team. Thanks for having me.
There we go. Absolutely. Thanks for being here.
Thanks
so we're
in
part 3 of our Avatar series. Brad, you want to give us a quick recap of how we got here so we can take Erin as a deep dive into her avatar and her business?
Of course. For those of you who watched the previous 2 episodes, we talked a little bit about why avatars are important. They help us frame our sales messaging, they help with marketing, they help us narrow in and be more specific, and it makes a whole bunch of stuff easier in terms of product development, talent acquisition, branding, anything and everything based on the customer-facing side of things. And we do it because it really helps us to increase revenue over time. When we get specific and we niche down, niche, not niche. According to Erin, we learned prior to this that our argument last time was incorrect. Niche is a French word, and it's not pronounced niche, like us Wisconsinites like to say. So we learned something. Thank you, Erin. So with that, we then dove into what are the components and the details that go into an avatar. And today we have our first guest in Erin, who's going to walk us through a little bit about what she does and who she serves. And then we're going to do a deep dive and create an avatar specifically for her business. And we're going to walk you through how we ask the questions. Sound good?
Great.
All right. So with that, Erin, why don't you tell us a little bit about what your business is, what you do for them, the results, all that stuff.
Great. So I have been an HR enthusiast and an HR professional for 6 or 7 years. And I've worked mainly for founder-led companies and organizations in the startup world, whether that be social impact, nonprofits that behave a little bit more like for-profits or social impact, and more recently for companies in different industries that are for-profit. In 2019, I left a full-time role as an HR leader to support as many companies as I could that were transitioning from that startup phase into something bigger, because that was a spot I really loved working in at my last full-time role. I lived in New York City, which is where the primary base of my clients have been. And my niche has been kind of like transformational and progressive human resources and people operations. So what I would like for part of my professional legacy to be is helping companies operate their human resources practices in ways that are less punitive and more rooted in possibility. Thinking about employee engagement and not just policy and the structures that can feel oppressive in the workplace. And there are a lot of things about the workplace that can't change, such as employment law, compliance, things like that. So it's not about eliminating the rules that we can't change. It's more about educating and informing both employers and their employees of the things that we all have to abide by, why it's important, and then experiment and expand as much as possible other policies that we're able to. So what I've been doing with clients since April of 2019 is going in and doing anything from a full-scale HR people operations build from less than scratch to having clear management practices, leadership training, coaching for employees, employee relations issues, performance management, et cetera, just the whole kit and caboodle, to one-off ad hoc projects, but that are all rooted in this idea of the workplace being a space of people thriving as well as the business thriving. So enter March 2020, COVID-19, pandemic economics, and also a geographic move. A lot has happened for me personally this year. So I moved from New York City to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and my base of business was going to be in New York City for 2020. COVID has changed all of it. So my intention was to hire someone for the marketing, sales, and like, what the heck even is that for my consultancy? Because I'm in HR, not marketing or sales. And now I'm in the position of having to really think through that on my own, or with the support of other incredible professionals in various fields. One in particular, Michael Rampla of Spirity, you may have heard of it and him. And just
I'm not familiar with him.
Who's that guy?
He's a really nice guy. I'll connect the two of you. We'll do a little pickup. Yeah, so now I'm thinking through something I was hoping to delegate to someone else in about a year. And it's been really challenging and really confronting and really interesting. I've gotten a little bit more clear, again, with Michael's support, on what exactly it is companies might want to be talking about as it relates to HR and operations now. So something that really shifted was, again, the niche was kind of like companies that wanted to spend money on getting cool, who were getting hip around like, what is an employer brand? What is good data around employee engagement? So we're not talking about happy hours or foosball tables. We're talking about trust. We're talking about management practices. We're talking about quality communications, like things that are rooted in ops and culture. So what I am zeroing in on now is performance management practices that can support employee engagement at a time, where a lot of teams have been completely turned inside out, and we can talk more about that if it becomes relevant. Working with companies on policy adaptation. So right now we're seeing a lot of reports come out about obviously work from home policies or remote working policies, parent or caregiver policies that are having to adapt, how time off policies are having to adapt, things like that. Also, like, what are the parameters of being in a physical workspace? So all of those policies, and then the game plan around the employee relations issues that will inevitably come up as a result. And then finally, we're doing some matchmaking and bridging for diversity and inclusion efforts. So I do not specialize in that field, but have a wonderful network of people who do. And in light of all of the events of this past summer, I'm getting a lot of calls for that. And so I'm acting as a facilitator between companies who are doing this work, this very big, overwhelming work for the first time, and the network of people who are doing this in a really interesting and progressive and non-corporate way.
Okay, so in other words, you don't sleep.
Oh, no. I actually, sleep is well protected. Sleep is well protected. But thank you. It does help a lot, doesn't it?
It does. It does. And so I'm curious, with all of those things,
yes.
what is the one, I wrote down 3 of them because I tried to boil it down to, like, as you wrote down specifically services or areas of discipline you're targeting.
Yeah.
Performance management, policy adaptation, or this matchmaking thing.
Yeah.
Which one of those is specifically like the core of your business? Which one do you do most often?
Performance management.
And performance management.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. We're gonna work on that one then today. I think that makes the most sense. So, all right. And I also wrote down a whole bunch of notes on my sheet of paper in front of me. So those of you who are wondering why I was stretching my arm out, you talked about, like, generally a whole bunch of different types of people. So the goal of this today is to really characterize and personify one of those people. Sound good?
Yes.
Okay, because then when you're writing or talking to that person through marketing or messaging or sales, you can picture that person always in your head. That's who I'm talking to. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, cool. So let's start with, we're going to do performance management. So I'm just going to leave that up there. Tell me who it is when you begin thinking about this. Give this person a name for me. Like, who is it that you would typically talk to? Like, let's put a name to this person.
Andrew.
Andrew. Okay, Andrew's our guy. All right.
Actually,
can we give him an active?
I would like to make it. I'd like to make it a female founder. Let's call her Heather.
Heather. Ah, all right, Heather. Heather it is. Can we give Heather a descriptor of sorts, like
Why is Heather
awesome
talking
Heather
to you?
or
What,
active
what
Heather
is the
or-
adjective? Yeah, what is the adjective about Heather that
Yeah.
makes her the founder that you want to be talking to?
Mhm.
Heather's speaking to me because she is looking for a way to get her team kind of like realigned. And I want to say like back in the game in like an effective way. There's been a lot of scrambling and regrouping as of late. And where performance management can support her is making sure her team members know what they need to be doing, if their role has changed at all, if they've taken on additional work, if there's been company pivots, making sure her managers and her employees are in dialogue with one another about what needs to be done, and making sure they're still collecting data on performance during this time, even if they're not able to offer bonuses or compensation changes for the upcoming review cycle.
So she wants to help. She just doesn't necessarily know how.
That's right. She doesn't have this process in place. This is something that she's been wanting to introduce, or something that.
Let's call her helpful Heather. Helpful
I was
Heather.
going
How does that
helpful or hopeful. I was going in that neighborhood too. Perfect.
Say hopeful or hopeful?
Yeah, hopeful
Okay.
or helpful, because she wouldn't be
Hopeful.
talking to you if she didn't think that she could make a difference. She wants to do something about it, and she thinks she can. She just doesn't necessarily know where to go, or what to do yet.
Sure, yeah.
Enter Erin. Okay, cool. Brad, all yours.
And we got some pain points while we were doing it, right? Some
Yes,
challenges
we did.
already. See that? All right.
Sorry,
So-
I didn't mean to jump
so
the
tell me a
gun.
little-
I think about the pain a lot. So it's already like right
Think
there.
about I think about the pain a lot. I'm just going to grab it.
Pain.
Yeah,
I think about the pain. All right. That sounds painful.
not the most uplifting. Okay, I meditate.
Huh.
You get through it.
No, we'll call it empathetic.
How old is Heather? How old is hopeful Heather?
35.
She's 35. Okay. And tell me a little bit. Is she doing this on her own, or does she have somebody at home supporting her, like helping with her, being in a relationship?
She is in a relationship. She's
Okay.
Yeah.
She have a kid? Any kids?
typically no.
No kids.
No
Okay.
kids.
All right. And location, you talked about New York, Milwaukee, downtown New York, suburbs. You tell me.
Downtown New York. So, and if I may, and I don't want to sidetrack us, but like, should I be thinking more expansively so that I can expand the types of people who could benefit from the services? Because I'm going to think in I'm going to think in what I know. Because if that's the case, then
Well-
let's say she's got kids.
So this is part of the conversation, right? Where we can either go after the people who you've been serving
Yeah.
and expand upon those people with the messaging, right? And get very specific about it.
Yeah.
Or we can choose a different ideal customer. Typically, for most businesses we work with, I say, let's solidify one. So this one works, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna interject.
Michael.
I'm gonna coach and say, Erin, we should focus on who's already buying and finding more of them. It's a faster path to revenue.
All right. Solid. Heather doesn't have kids.
So,
She lives in
There we
New
go.
York.
Thank you. Perfect. That makes it easy. You also know her better, and for our first avatar, it's better to know that person better.
Great.
Yeah, exactly. The idea is to build this halo effect, right? So if we know this one, we know that you're going to get referrals from this person down the road. If you can speak really well to this person, you're going to build rapport, you're going to build relationships, you're going to have an understanding top to bottom, and you're going to be able to work that person through a customer value journey. And therefore, guess what? Now you have inbound referrals, your marketing message is very clear. Now we can tweak it and pivot it slightly. So maybe Heather gets a little older and decides to have kids.
Right.
Now we can speak to Heather that age group or that differentiation in her life, right?
Gotcha.
Okay, cool. So downtown NYC. All right. And so we've got our demographics of sorts, right?
Yeah.
Let's give her a headline. If she has a quote or a headline, what is a quote she would say?
It would be, gosh, on the spot. I don't know. I feel
She
like
calls you up and she says, Erin, I need your help. Fill in the blank.
need your help using venture capital to make a difference in the world.
So if she's
That's what
gonna
she might be
she's
doing.
gonna
Like,
use
she's
that.
talking to me to support her team.
Got it. I want to support my team. My team is trying to make a difference in the world. I need to support them, and I have money to do it.
Sure. Yeah.
Is that the venture capital piece? She has it, or she's trying to find it?
Yeah. That.
She has it. I have the money to spend. I'm looking for you to figure out the best way to spend it.
In terms of the headline, as it relates to why she'd be speaking to me specifically, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Would she say something like, "There's no I in team"?
sure. Yeah. Okay, cool.
I mean, does that like that's a quote that she probably reiterates because she's trying to develop team and focus
Right.
on it? Is that
Yeah.
okay? There.
So Erin, you're trying to like get into her head, like sit in her cubicle, like,
Yep.
and like look around her, right? Like what's on her wall, what's on her screen, like
Yeah.
what's the cute little quote board, like sitting there, you know, with the Instagram Pinterest background.
Yeah, I feel like there's certainly there are some kind of quotes about like manifestation. There's probably like something from Deepak Chopra. She probably, has like HBR issues or fortune issues.
Harvard Business Review for those of you following along at home.
I was going to say for Harvard Business Review.
HBR, I love it. Yeah, you can shorthand that. So, yep, got it. Okay, so she's studied, she looks to the experts, but the experts in different fields. So she's looking to the experts in business and HR practices, but also the experts in mindfulness and just interpersonal humanness.
Yeah, and
So like a quote I have on my wall is, "I want to be like Mike."
Not this one.
Yeah, and Michael's is, "I want to be like Brad." So it's,
Well, that's true. Yeah, but that's actually a tattoo. So a little closer to heart.
I mean, like something that I'm really familiar with is like, folks like this who are about like shaping the future.
There you go.
They're futurists. They are hooked on achievement and innovation, and yeah, just surrounded by really interesting people and resources.
Is she going to have a Gandhi be the change you want to see in the world? Is that going to be in her realm?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'm getting it. All right.
So
Brad,
we've got some idea. Is she a CEO or is she more like COO?
CEO, a bit more on like the visionary side. I'd like to add to her cubicle maybe like her MBA, like education credentials, things like that.
Okay.
Okay.
That makes sense.
She's got an MBA. She's running a startup, so money is like all over the place, depending, right?
Sure.
We don't really know.
Yeah.
Depends on the organization. Any other details about her, as like characteristics or like demographics?
No, about like she as an individual, not necessarily like the environment.
Okay.
I would say that.
Yep, just her as an individual.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So with that, we got some goal setting out of it, right? She clearly wants to make a difference in the world as a whole, using her business as a vehicle. What other goals around that does she have? Like, are there any selfish goals?
Sure. She wants to be a thought leader in her space. Is that selfish? Self-serving? That's like focused on the individual.
Why?
Right?
Yeah.
Why does she want to be a thought leader in her space?
To widen her sphere of influence, so
Why?
that she doesn't have to work as much. She can kind of not work, but like she can like advise and speak and write, and it's kind of like her personal brand is the product as opposed to necessarily like the company output.
Why?
it's just what she'd prefer to do
Why?
because maybe she's better at being a messenger than being a business leader.
Okay. So, but that doesn't really, why does she want that, right? Like selfishly, people have three main motivating factors. Is it her personal health? Is it relationships? Or is it wealth?
Let's go with wealth.
Okay.
No, I don't know how lucrative a career like that is in relation. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of that's a bit of a moonshot. Nonetheless, let's say wealth.
Okay. Okay. All right. And what values around this? We get the fact that she's a believer in teamwork. We think she believes in leadership. She's very much, what other values around it? And values don't necessarily have to be tied to her business objectives, right? They can be something that is outside of business.
Okay. Her values around this.
Core values. Think core
Right.
values. You ever,
Family.
Koozie Posner, family? Okay. What else?
Something keeps coming up for me around kind of like the environment, like literally like the health of the planet.
Okay.
Travel, exposure, experiences.
Okay. What else? Anything else?
I want to say comfort, which sounds like stability, financial stability, growth, wealth.
Okay. All right. So we have hopeful Heather, who's 35. She has a relationship at home, but no kids. She lives in downtown New York City. She would say there's no I in team. She's the CEO at this startup. She's got an MBA. She's making some money, but she's growing a company, so she understands it because she wants to make a difference in the world. And she thinks that she can be a leader because if she does it, then there's less work because she'll have enough money to have options. And she really believes in family travel to the planet and financial stability. What other sources of information help shape this for her? So we said HBR. Yeah. What are some other things? Books, magazines, conferences, people she follows, gurus, all that stuff.
Yeah. How specific am I just like naming things that I think?
As specific as possible.
Great. Let's see. So I've put her in venture capital, and yet I know very little about venture capital. So like conferences and things like that, I'm not really going to be able to name, or even like what would relevant podcasts be for her? I'm not quite sure, but there are, I'm sure, 5, right? That she probably.
So okay. So what are they?
What are
the podcasts? What are the podcasts that this person would listen to?
I don't really listen to them myself, so I can't really name them. I'm sure there's one that's called like Money Matters, or like maybe like I'm sure maybe the New York Times has some, or the Wall Street Journal or something has like some kind of finance podcast.
There's one called The Pitch, which just sounds perfectly appropriate.
There's a podcast called The Pitch.
Yep. There's another one, which again is, I know one that would be good. Masters of Scale. It's one that I actually listen to. I think that one's good.
That's a good one. Yeah. Masters of Scale.
Full Ratchet is another one.
There we go. Bootstrapped VC feels on brand.
Feels great.
Okay.
Yeah, I got Full Racket on here. Okay, good.
Who does she follow? Who does Heather follow? Like, who's a person or a guru that she would follow?
Ray Dalio.
Who? Ray Dalio?
Ray Dalio. DALIO.
Okay.
Good call.
Tim Ferriss. I imagine she's read, what is it? Tools and Titans.
Sure.
4-Hour Work Week.
4-Hour Work.
Yeah.
All the bro mentors, right?
Okay.
The Ryan
Bro mentors.
I lovingly refer to the category as the bro mentors. They're great though. Brian
That's really good.
The obstacle is the way, right? Like that's just like biblical.
Okay.
So let's see. I said before.
What's the last book she read?
Pardon me?
What's the last book she read?
Principles by Ray Dalio.
Principles.
Okay.
All right. Cool. See where we're going with this? Is this helping, like, to characterize it? Because you're asking questions now. Now these are things that, as you talk to people, I would really begin to understand this. And the reason this part down here, the sources of information, is so important is because if you ever want to run ads or get on the right podcasts or get in front of them as a thought leader yourself, this is where they hang out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why this is so important. So like advertising, so traffic, earned traffic and paid traffic. This is where we begin to get this all out of, right? This is your sources of information of where you're going to spend your time and energy for sales activity.
Cool.
All right. We're going over, Michael. I hope you're okay with that, man.
All right. I was just going to say, I'm calling an audible. Let's keep rolling. This is fantastic.
Good. All right.
Okay, great. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So typically, and we're going faster with this, right? Typically, when we'd run this, we would spend probably an hour and a half, 2 hours doing this, and everybody would be around a table with their computer searching for things like you didn't know what podcast. So we'd lay out some descriptors and then find a bunch of them and go, does this sound right? Does this sound right? Does this sound right? Or if we didn't have answers to this, we'd deploy a strategy called the Dream 100 strategy, where we basically build out some characteristics of the people and what they would listen to. And I'd have a team go out and list a whole bunch of stuff on platforms or anything like that, right? The other thing is, like, they're probably on LinkedIn more than anything else, right?
Right.
You know, so they're going to spend time on LinkedIn, right? That's another thing we'd put in there, and we'd understand it in terms of priority of platforms.
Yeah.
Make sense?
It totally makes sense. It makes me want to talk through all of the avatar options with you, but maybe that'll be, maybe we'll do a series together. I don't know. I'm just floating it, but yeah, no, all of that does make sense.
Okay. Cool. All right. Let's keep going then to challenges and pain points. You already outlined some of them. But the thing that I really want to dig into is what specifically about team realignment, knowing what they're doing, managers collecting data. What about these are pain points or challenges for them?
Well, when those things not being in place.
So these are not in place.
They're not in place. When they're not in place, I won't speak generally. In this situation, this hypothetical that doesn't exist, these things are not in place. And as such, engagement is a little low, and so is morale.
Okay. So these things lead to low engagement, and what else do they lead to?
Low
morale.
Low what? Morale.
Low morale.
Morale.
And by extension, as we know from the data, that also leads to lower productivity and lower results for the business.
Bingo, bango.
Low results.
Right.
Yep.
So there's business incentive here for sure.
Big time.
Okay. So if we know that those are the pain points and they're not in place, what about that is a challenge for them to get those things in place? Let's take it a step further, right?
Yeah. Time is a challenge to zoom out, to actually look at the landscape of inefficiencies. You know, and I really have a ton of compassion for companies right now in this time of COVID calibration, where, you know, companies are experiencing so much inefficiency because they've been scrambling and running triage for 4 months. And, you know, business continuity without engagement continuity ain't going to take them too far. So it's like, okay, now we've got to zoom out and look at the mess so we can try to cobble something back together with very likely a pretty loose or lean strategy for the remainder of the year, with some real kind of, you know, taking our best swings at what 2021 will look like, because we don't actually know that yet. So I think time is the biggest challenge, and time is the challenge that is often referenced because it's also very overwhelming and can be very intimidating. But
What I'm hearing is this person wants to prioritize strategy, but has now found the ability to do that. They're prioritizing action because they're in a reactive mode.
yeah, super
Okay.
common, and especially in a moment.
They desire strategy. They miss it. They ache for it. There's the gap, the pain gap of I don't have it, but I know if I did have it, it would help me. But I have to just keep running.
Yeah. I'd like to add that another
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Can I ask a question specifically about that? So they're funded, right? These are funded companies most of the time?
Yes.
Okay. So the way I look at like speed to figuring out some of these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're either going to spend time or you're going to spend money,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is it the matter that they don't have the time
Mm-hmm.
and the money? Or is it the matter that they don't have just the time to even take that initial step?
Time to take the initial.
Just pure time. Okay. But if they had that first step, they'd be like, cool, money, I got it, right? I'll pay, I got it. Like I'll pay to take care of this.
Yes. Some nuance to add there is time is money, right? Like the time that is
Totally.
spent on the inefficiency is costly. Depending on what it is, it varies. Also, again, the nuance of this time, depending on the circumstance of the company, right? Like that's where we can work together to bring solutions that are right-sized for their budget.
Okay.
That could try to bring some of these challenges into a little bit of a better place.
Okay.
So I don't want to jump us off. Oh, go ahead.
So it is really about the time, like purely because they probably don't even know what the first step is.
Right. They don't know what they don't know, right? Because like usually companies that are talking to me, I'm not talking to companies that have HR managers. Or if I am talking to a company that's got an HR manager, they're not an HR leader. So usually a lot of us find ourselves in this line of work. You know what I mean? So because you're in the HR role doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have the capacity to develop a strategic performance management process that could bring this kind of alignment.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Michael,
so
you had
just to clarify
sorry, I
that,
didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. I was interrupting you. So one of two options. They either have the money and they're not spending it, or they have the money and they're spending it on something else. So we're asking them to reallocate funds or start to spend savings.
You're asking me this question?
Yeah, I'm asking Erin. So I'm going to talk to this person and say that money you're sitting on and doing nothing with, or you're holding for some usage, this is the use of it. Or you're spending money on that other thing that's not solving the problem. I'm asking you to reallocate it to use it here where it will solve the problem.
Well, I don't know that I would have that level of insight. Should I just assume I do?
Yes. Be Heather for a minute, get in her chair again.
Or yeah, you're the CEO. Remember, this is our avatar, right?
Okay.
Like this is we're characterizing hopeful Heather. Hopeful Heather has an answer to that. Whether or not it's the right answer or the best answer is a different story.
Out.
But it's a story that's in her head.
Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna go with the savings scenario, Michael, because I think that would be the most challenging one to break through.
So it's sitting in my profitability. It's over there in my account. I'm not spending it.
Yeah, and it's still a wise that's a wise allocation of savings. Is anything that's going to increase productivity for your team.
Got it.
So money is in the net. If I'm understanding
that's
based on
good way to say it. Yes.
Okay. The money is in the net, but because she's running a funded startup, she has a conflicted thing in her brain because she's trying to satisfy two masters, right? Master one is, or through multiple masters. Investors, customers, internal staff, three main stakeholders, right? And based on the personality, her primary master is funders. Tell me if I'm wrong. Okay. All right. Funder, then customer, then probably internal staff, right?
Right. Well, and something that is just a wee note I'll add here is that, every leader I speak to, every founder, because I typically am speaking to founders, believe they value their internal team more than they're willing to actually invest in their internal team.
Whoa,
Mm-hmm.
that's really good.
That's a belief.
That's a real
That's a value bomb right there.
Throw that in. Beautiful. You never know when you're gonna stumble on one of these. Beautiful.
So they believe they're helping their team, even though they're not, right? They believe in their team without giving them the resources they necessarily need.
Yes.
Ooh, I see an opportunity.
So do I.
Please
All right.
tell me what the opportunity.
All right. No. We're teasing a little bit. Sorry, it's part of the magic. It's like don't worry. It's coming.
It's part of the show.
Part of it. Yeah, it is. It is. Just this is the dance. This is the dance. I'm just getting a little bit of a peek, and then we put it away. A little bit of peek, and we put it away.
I said first vixen, right?
You did. You did say. You did say. She can hear us, Brett.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just because you do one of these doesn't mean.
Wait, look, hey, did I say yes to a relatively cryptic text to be part of a thing? Yes.
You did. You totally did. Without even, you responded to the
did.
first half text, not even the full text that gave you the picture. So,
I was
yeah.
like,
I'm in.
I'm in. What am I in? What did I just agree to? Perfect.
I like
Perfect. Get in the chair.
I like an adventure, which is kind of fun. Like you said, strategy is so confusing. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, Brad.
So we've got a lot of stuff here, right? We've got our sources. We now understand a lot of the challenges that we're dealing with, and the main challenge is time and the conflict of how to use her other big resource, which is money, because she's trying to believe in her team without investing in the resources. So we've already began to develop some objections, right? And these are internal objections that they're having when you talk to them, right? They may not be describing them, but they're playing in their head, in Heather's head specifically, right? Heather is going, I'm talking to Erin. Here's what I'm going. I don't know what I need to do first. One, so how can I invest in this as a tool? Two, where am I going to find the money? The only place the money is in my net.
Mm-hmm.
And my primary stakeholder, which is my funders and investors, are going to be upset if I pull this out from an operational standpoint because they're looking for 10x return.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so the point is this, is that now we've got some big pain points and some big objections. Are there any more objections to doing this?
I just remembered a really good one.
Okay, let's hear it.
People bring a lot of baggage into or away from human resources. And what I mean by that is I'm sometimes talking to founders who are like, I know I need HR, but like I have low trust and mega recency bias. And, we had an HR manager that just completely bombed last year. And I just like, what am I don't know what exactly to do about it. And so they just kind of come in without a high degree of understanding of the domain, I think, much less trust in the fact that it can actually be like effective for their business.
Okay.
Got it. So there's an element of HR is tactical and punitive, not HR is strategic and progressive.
That's right. And a lot of founders are like put off by ops and HR. It's like we use the unsexy words like standard operating procedures, right?
Right.
And founders often are, they live in the vision. It all makes sense, right? Like we play our role. But
you know what term I like to use for all of this, and it's a military term. You ready? It's called poop. You know why? It stands for proper order of procedure. Poop. That way at least makes people laugh and then they don't get so serious about it.
Wow, poop. Okay, may I borrow that for my condo?
Please do.
Because let me tell you one thing that doesn't get people giggling. SOP.
Right. Poop.
No.
On the other hand, especially if you have a poop
on the
sheet.
other hand, that's right. Poop sheets are
it's on the poop sheet. It's on the poop sheet.
Order of procedure.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a military term.
All righty. Thank you.
I mean, they're wearing green most of the time, right? So poop.
Wow. Great.
And here we are.
Okay.
Business can be fun. You just got to make it fun.
Yes. HR is fun. See, kids? Okay.
Yeah. All right. My last question in this whole process, because again, we could dive way deep into each of these sections, and typically we would, is what is their role in the decision-making process of doing this? Can they make the final decision, or do they have to take it to the board?
Ooh. They make the final decision.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, are they being influenced by others? Quite possibly.
Aha. That was my next question. Was influence.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
See, she's half a step ahead.
Sorry, team.
It's good.
I mean, not sorry, but also like I don't want to like mess with the
Way to steal my thunder.
Sorry, homie. That was not in the poop. That was not.
That wasn't in the poop. You're right. We're going to go way off on a tangent if we keep up this poop thing, and I really don't want to do it because it'll just blow up the whole thing. But you know, it's just a little kernel.
I'm committed.
A little kernel to.
I'm committed.
All right. Yes. All right. All right. So we have Hopeful Heather. Hopeful Heather has a lot of thoughts and values and goals that are influenced by these sources of information. And she's dealing with these challenges and pain points because of her values, because she wants to make a difference in the world. But really, her objections are focused around basic resources and her inability to choose to make the investment because she doesn't necessarily have the full awareness or understanding of the full impacts of things, even though she's read about it maybe in HBR.
Mm-hmm.
How's that for a story?
That feels really great. And I appreciate hearing you frame the objections as being resource-based. I just do. Thank you. Great.
No problem. That's what I'm here for, right? That and the comedic relief, evidently. So what of this is most valuable to you, right? What is most helpful about seeing it in this picture? Typically, we'd take it a step further. We'd slap a picture of Hopeful Heather on here, and we'd write out how this fits within a customer value journey as you pull them into being somebody who becomes aware of you, somebody then who subscribes in what you're doing, somebody then who buys from you, and then you excite them about what you do and they ascend to a different level of service that you would offer, and then they become an advocate and then eventually a promoter of them.
Yeah.
How does this help you characterize that? Or does it help you characterize it?
I believe that it does. I can say that the things, what I'm walking away from this with that I definitely didn't have coming in is the resources guide, basically. Like, you know, having checked out the previous Sketchy Ideas segments, I was thinking through like the like we did the types of reading, the podcasts, the authors, the gurus, like the coaching groups they're part of, the entrepreneurial kind of like incubator programming, like Starting Block, Sandbox, Techstars, like stuff like that, Summit series, like things that I hadn't, you know, I'm aware of, but I hadn't, I don't think I was valuing properly. And then what you were saying in our session here about the fact that like, and these are clues for channels for my whatever marketing, sales strategies, exposure strategy. So that's all brand new and actually like fun and exciting.
Cool. That's great. I'm glad that's helpful. Yeah, totally is. Yeah. I typically break this down when people try to understand the relevance, is I go, look, this is where your ad and your traffic is going to come from. These you just need to characterize any targeting. These are what the emotional heartstrings you're going to begin to speak to, right? In terms of the aspirations or like the relative things around them.
Yeah.
This is where you're going to be able to pull some headlines and some of the stories, like when you see a headline or you talk about pain points, you're beginning to paint. It's just like it is in any good movie. It starts with something happening at the beginning, right? This is your hooks. These are all your hooks up here. all these pain points, right? And then down here, your objections, this is all the rationalization and the logic that you're going to speak to. Once they've made the emotional choice to buy in, this is where you're going to begin to pull out all those bullets that are technical in nature, because people buy on emotion and then rationalize with logic. That's what this all is.
I love that, because the way my mind works, and Michael and I have talked about this, is very much like a user's manual. So I tend to lead with logic.
We all do. A lot of people do, because it's easy.
Yeah.
Right. It's the easiest thing to describe.
I think I'm saving people time by being like, hey, I understand your problem. Can I help you solve it?
And they're just opening the front. They haven't even opened the book yet, and you're already on chapter 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Okay. Right. Those
now you got to make Hopeful Heather
folks.
your hero of the story, right? Hopeful Heather is the hero or the heroine of the story, and you are the guide or the mentor providing a framework in the guise of hitting all of these things, right? You find the hero or heroine at these sources. You understand what they look like. You speak to them in terms of their value system. You hook them in with the pain points. You guide them through it with your framework that solves these problems and therefore fixes a lot of things. And help them actually to invest in their team because they do believe in them, not just paying lip service to it.
Yeah, wow. It's a $64 million nut to crack. Let me tell you about it. This is amazing. Thank you very much. I have a question that could be provocative of a whole different level of convo, which I understand we're not here to do today.
We don't take questions. We don't take questions on this show.
So we are here to ask the questions.
We only do.
This is in the contract.
We only do.
Right.
We only drop sketchy ideas. Sketchy ideas up on the board.
All
Sorry. Right. Provoke us.
Okay, and like I say, this is my next big question. Obviously, I have a lot to figure out from what we've actually done based on my actual reality, but I'm really keen on understanding the avatar of, or the persona of, the kind of next level of person I would like to be speaking to and selling to, which is the HR manager, who for one reason or another lacks the resources, be it bandwidth, time, experience, money, team, whatever, to handle the performance management process at their company right now.
So basically, rinse and repeat, but with a different person in a different context.
Different person, different context, would love a different market. Like, what are other professionals and entrepreneurs like? So that's, I'm just curious from a perspective of like, how do you avatar people you haven't worked with or know very many of?
So Brad, this goes back to the, if you have a lot of data versus don't have a lot of data. So this is the, I don't have the data, but I want it.
There's a couple ways to hack it. One of the easiest ways to start is to dissect a competitor who is serving that audience that you want to go after. That's one way to begin to hack it, right? One of the things that we do, like with ad hacking down here on the sources, is we will actually go and dissect their paid traffic strategy and dissect their advertising to begin to work backwards in terms of like, cool, you're putting out an ad, that ad has a hook that maybe speaks to a rational story or speaks to a value, and we'll begin to go backwards that way to paint a picture of who they're targeting. Another thing we'll do is that, especially if you don't know anything about that person, then we do a lot of like customer interviews, right? So you basically have a worksheet you can build out, right? This is fact finder before making a sale. Go find somebody, network with somebody, and ask them, hey, where do you go read stuff? What information do you follow? You know, what makes you believe this stuff and dig deep, just like we did, only you're doing like a persona interview. I put a lot of time into this when we talk about getting as extremely specific as possible, because the more specific I can be, the higher rate of effectivity I will be in terms of talking to that person, period. This is part of the reason why when we teach how to flip people from a sales process to a marketing strategy, we go, what did your fact finder look like? And what out of those fact finders worked versus what didn't work? So if you have, and most quality entrepreneurs or salespeople have a couple people who they've talked to, who they want to talk to, and they go back through that process and go, what questions did I ask? And then how did I frame the answers to them in the proposal or the solution phase of that process to be able to work backwards? So that most everybody has the tools. You just have to take a step back and look at the whole picture.
Yeah.
And then if you don't have answers, go and dive into it.
I need to put a PSA asterisk on the last about 90 to 95 seconds of Brad. Kids, Brad is a professional. Please don't try this at home. If you're gonna hack and reverse engineer marketing and ad spend out of somebody else's advertising, please seek the help of a professional. There are non-serviceable parts behind that panel. Please don't try this at home. You've got an idea about what the professional does. Please talk to the professional. We don't want you to get hurt. Thank you.
There are some good things in that note, but I mean, sometimes you can dive into the deep end and go for a swim, and maybe you're talented, but.
I understand that, but you have practice. You are a guide and a Sherpa through that jungle. I just don't want people saying, "Oh, I can do that now." Like we've seen that, right? So just general. I mean, hey, there's a reason this is Sketchy Ideas, but also we want to keep people safe.
That's hilarious, and
yes.
And the answer is yes, Michael. That was correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
You did a good thing.
Wear your seatbelt.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Safety goggles. Mask up, kids. Erin, thanks for the provocative questions. Brad, way to tackle it. Any other final thoughts from either of you as we put a wrap on this extra large gift today?
The only thing I would say is that the biggest thing is do your research.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hope that everybody who's watching understands that this is all. Erin, how long have you been doing this?
Working for myself for 1.5 years. I've been thinking about actually marketing to people for about 3 months.
Right, but how long have you been serving Hopeful Heather?
There we go.
Or in some capacity?
6 years.
6 years, okay? So understand 6 years. This is 6 years worth of knowledge and conversations of you having conversations with people just like Hopeful Heather.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That doesn't happen overnight. So if you haven't been doing that for that time period, you got to take time and dive into this. If people are doing this on their own, when I teach this to groups of people, I go, this turns into like 5 drafts, and you get detailed and detailed and detailed. And then when you write it out, it turns into like a 5 to 10 page document. And that's how specific you get, because it will help you immensely with the specificity of the messaging later on. Just takes time.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the permission of time. Similar to how I like to give the permission of time to the people who I work with and for. Thanks for the reminder that I should practice what I preach.
I was once told patience is a virtue. It's something I struggle with too.
You guys about to say, and then what
I want it now.
And then what happened? Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for being on the show. Thanks for being our first
Erin.
Victim and actually our very first guest ever on this show.
Wow.
I feel like we should have like confetti falling, like falling through the air.
It was fun and informative, and I'm grateful to have y'all's minds on my challenges. So.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
So if you guys, if those watching want to join us on the next one, all you got to do is ping us, and Michael's going to share with you how to do that.
All right, you can ping us on any of our socials, and if you want to send a specific email, very easy way to do that. Send it to sketchyideas@ccmediagroup.co. Our producer Brian will pick it up from there, and as we are sharing this on Facebook and elsewhere, you can obviously just reach out to any of those ways as well. Please follow us, like us, subscribe us, heart us, whatever one does in these worlds. And I just want to say one more time, thank you again to Erin Hinkle, founder and chief principal consultant at BuildRise. Thank you to Brad James. Thank you to Michael Rampolla. Thank you to Brian Omeg. This has been Sketchy Ideas. Just remember, just because it's a sketchy idea doesn't mean it's not worth exploring. Thanks again for your time, everybody. Thanks for sticking around with us for the extra long episode, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Okay. Thanks, y'all. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Bye.